troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night.
Welcome to the SLUSH podcast, the only place on the internet where we cover Ghostbusters to baby diapers and everything in between.
So, welcome back. Episode 18. This is our first showcase special. And today I decided to showcase Yu-Gi-Oh!
Woo!
Yo! Crazy!
It finally happened.
Yeah, it's we've been trying to get a setup like this, not just for Yu-Gi-Oh, but just for other projects as well. Sorry for the audio listeners. I'll try to describe everything as clearly as I can. So right now I just have a Yu-Gi-Oh mat. Going to be placing all my cards in that I have in card sleeves. But this is probably going to be one of many specials. For instance, I'll be showcasing Yu-Gi-Oh. Then one episode, Matt will be showing off some of his comic books, or even some of his action figures he's kept behind himself that you see all the time.
It's true. They're there. Love them.
Yeah, even his little gold photon blaster.
It's a proton pack, actually.
Proton. I'm
Bro.
sorry, I forgot the
Wow.
H.
You'll never make it as a maritime Ghostbuster at this rate, Sully. I'm just
I'm already
joking.
failing.
No, that's cool. I'm glad that we're doing this because, like you said, it would be fun because I feel like we both have a bunch of neat stuff that we can show people, or like our, two people that are listening. Cody, I know you're there. Yeah, it'll be fun because you love Yu-Gi-Oh! And you always talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! So this will be enjoyable, I think, for you to show off what you got,
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is honestly my favorite franchise of all time to me personally, because I've been collecting since 2005. Since I was a wee lad.
Damn.
Yeah. Whenever I was a good student, my teacher would give me the old McDonald's little card sets of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and that's what I'd use to help build up my collection as well.
That's hilarious. It's crazy. Do they still ever give them out at McDonald's?
Not in North American McDonald's.
Oh, man,
anymore.
that's too bad. They don't do anything cool.
There actually is a cool way they do distribute cards for people who don't even play Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Shonen Jump, where it isn't just Yu-Gi-Oh! It has Dragon Ball and the newest Shonen animes, and they actually to promote Yu-Gi-Oh! They always do a promo card to come with the magazines that come out. They're like, here's all the new mangas that are coming out that are from these mangakas and this thing, and here's what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is doing, and here's a new card that you can use to play Yu-Gi-Oh!
As they should. Because, I mean, for me, I remember when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out, but I think I was just old enough where I was like... Because what year did that come out, Yu-Gi-Oh? What year was the anime show?
The Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime came out in 96.
96. So I would have been going to grade 7. So, yeah, it was a Rage Against the Machine kind of year that year. So, that makes sense in my books. But yeah, so what do you want to tackle first? The television series and explain what it is,
Okay.
or then jump into the game, or what do you think?
So I'm gonna just give a brief history of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, and then I'll touch on the game.
Okay.
So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a manga series by the mangaka Kazuki Takahashi that he created. When he was first publishing this, he actually had a first start where he was actually just didn't know what he wanted Yu-Gi-Oh! To be. It wasn't even to be with cards at first, at all. It was actually supposed to be a series of just kind of mini games that the main character would challenge other opponents into, and then eventually he made this card game, tarot card game, pop up once he was facing one of his opponents. And then as soon as that part came out in his original draft of Yu-Gi-Oh!, there were so many people who came flooding to Shueisha and Shonen Jump hey, how do I get those cards? Cards are so cool and how they're playing them. And then they went to ask Kazuki. It was hey, so how are you, how are these cards things working? I was I just did it as a one-off. I didn't think people will take so much interest into it. And then they're hey, what if you you take a presentation and make sure that the card game is influenced into your story? And then he thought about it. I was you know what? If I'm gonna do that, I'm actually gonna reboot my series. I'm actually gonna make sure the card game is the main part of my story from chapter 1. So then he rebooted it with the card game in mind, and made sure that this is what integral part of the story instead of just being a series of games with it, and that was the first OG series that came out in '96. The one that we see all and recognize now, with your boy Yugi Moto. Hopefully, that's a
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
it's as somebody who's never known much about Yu-Gi-Oh, I've always assumed he was the main character throughout, like Goku kind of in Dragon Ball, where it's always been him. But I didn't know that there were multiple series of it, like you were telling me the other day. So yeah, I'm
Yes.
sad about
So
that.
yeah. So Yu-Gi-Oh is an interesting series where the OG series of Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Monsters. It's only a branch off and ends this character's story, and then it goes on to new protagonists, and that's how it is for every series of Yu-Gi-Oh. And that's how because Kazuki Takahashi wanted to keep it fresh for himself if he was going to keep writing this series. He didn't want to just be stuck with one character and one kind of concept. So he kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of somewhat like anthology based, where every series is a different flavor and it adds a new different mechanic to the game each iteration. So Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Monsters or Yu-Gi-Oh is the first series. Then the second series is Yu-Gi-Oh GX, based in high school. Woot woot. And then the third series is in the future where they play card games on motorcycles. It's so weird.
Like while they're driving them?
While they're driving, yeah, hand in hand.
They just had to really up the ante on that, didn't they?
Yeah, they kept up on the ante, and then I think the fourth series was them going into a digital world with Yu-Gi-Oh, kind of like Digimon of sorts, but except Yu-Gi-Oh, weirdly enough.
Weird, because Digimon came well after Yu-Gi-Oh, didn't it?
I I don't know if it came out around the same time or before Yu-Gi-Oh did, because I wouldn't be surprised if it came before.
Is Digimon still going as a sidetrack here?
Oh, Digimon is, I think, it's been like an on and off series. They did like a movie way back in like 2017 that with the old cast.
Whoa.
That's kind of like also a interesting series where they every time they make a new one, they make a whole new cast.
Oh.
Yeah. But this is when the first series, and they're all kids like 10, 12 years old. They did a movie with them in high school and showcase how they would still be using being pals with their Digimon and whatnot.
It's awesome. We just can't let anything go. Star
Yeah, I know,
Wars,
right?
Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon,
Yeah, the
Jurassic
list goes
Park.
on.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
Ghostbusters.
I think
Yeah,
we should
Jurassic
address
Park should definitely be let go. Like, I think it's done. Wow.
it. I know, right?
Anyway,
I
I'm
think that's
sorry.
just something-
I'm totally getting you. We went into dinosaurs somehow, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, that's kind of like a brief history of Yu-Gi-Oh! The story in why itself. Unfortunately, the mangaka Kazuki Takahashi, he passed away, I believe, in 2022. He ended up dying, actually rescuing one of his friends that were drowning during a deep sea dive. But he unfortunately wasn't able to come out unscathed and passed away from that. And
It's
ever
crazy.
since then, yeah, I know, right?
What the hell? The guy who makes card games died in the ocean. Well, from the ocean.
From the ocean, yeah.
Trying to rescue someone. Bizarre.
It's so weird too, because I'm pretty sure this is when it was such a weird time because the queen died, and then Kazuki Takahashi died, and then I think it was on the same time that unfortunately, like one of the candidates that was going for Prime Minister of Japan also was assassinated, and obviously it was just like so much death, and then even in Japan that was like obviously with that death, and then obviously with this death, I was like, oh my god, like there's so much, there's like nothing good happening right now. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a cluster of not funness. That's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah,
Damn.
it was like all in the span of like a month or so.
What's 2024 got for us, Sully?
You never know.
It's gonna be
A
great.
new card game.
Yeah,
A new Yu-Gi-Oh anime. Let's go.
be Yu-Gi-Oh with 2 H's. It'll be great.
Hell
So
yeah.
sorry.
I always thought that since Yu-Gi-Oh has an exclamation mark in its name, I always thought it was gonna add more and more and more.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, it doesn't. So are you supposed to scream this name, or is it like?
It's supposed to go Yu-Gi-Oh! Whoa, 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 as it echoes in the distance.
Oh my god. All right then. So, I don't even know where I got you off topic here originally. What was the last
we
thing
were
you were?
We were talking about Digimon, and then
Digimon,
yeah.
90s.
So just to talk about the brief history of the game itself. After the popularity of the game in the manga, they obviously Shonen Jump really wanted to like popularize on the idea of an actual physical card game people can play and collect and buy. So they were trying to find a way to outsource it. So they actually lent their IP source to Konami, who bought the rights to Yu-Gi-Oh and started making all the cards and everything you see to this day. And with that, they've published many of their Akana cards, like Dark Magician Girl and a bunch of tokens of sorts, all that go within the anime, and to help players play the game as such. It's kind of weird that right now I think the games kind of outgrew the original source of the animes, because a lot of times there's actually like a lot of the times they will try to make decks that come from the anime with characters, but then the animes weren't coming out frequently enough, and then at times when he was making it, they just wasn't enough cards to be pumped out for different varieties and different sets, because they started making sets like every few months, and they started making new sets every month or so. And then there wasn't enough monsters and content being made up for it, so then they decided to make their own like original characters in Yu-Gi-Oh! And archetypes to play within the game, and that's what kind of breathed life into the series, instead of just waiting for like, oh, I can't wait for the newest set for like Dark Magician Girl for that support. They started making their own original characters, like Sky Striker. This is the newest, one of the newest variations of card types that's originally from Konami. Yeah, so they started branching out with different like stories of cards. Even like there's lore books you can find in different archetypes that aren't told at all in the anime.
Wow,
And
that's pretty crazy. So how much percentage of the cards that are made you think have never been included in the anime?
Right now, I think it's kind of been balancing it out, especially since they do different kind of variations. It's pretty close. I would say it's about like 60% like new kind of archetypes and like 40% like actual characters and decks from the anime.
Yeah, that's quite a few actually. That's surprising.
It is quite a few. It's a pretty leveled amount, just because they're pumping out sets left, right, and center. And that's essentially sometimes a lot of cards that come out in the manga they would save for later that don't get released later on. Like there's so many cards from the anime that got printed out, but there wasn't many cards from the manga. Sometimes it would differentiate with like that.
Are there ever any are there any characters from the anime that have never made their way into the card game, like in real life?
Right now, there probably is a few that I'm not thinking of in like the newer kind of series of Yu-Gi-Oh! As the series continued. But all the OG characters from the original series, I think, all have their own decks, all have their own retrains, and even sometimes like. Since the game progresses and evolves, let's say I bring a card deck from like 2001 with Dark Magician Girl, and I bring it in today's meta of 2024. It's not going to compete. Like it's just different realms, different areas. So they actually make retrains of these cards to be breath of new life into the card's IP.
That's cool.
So they can actually be played again. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. So how many cards do they usually release per year, or is it? I guess it changes every year.
It changes every year, but they do release like different kind of sets, rarities, ultra rarities, secret rarities, etc. And right now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Celebrating their 25th anniversary. Funny enough, so they've been doing a release celebration between all the variations of their kind of style formats. Because right now, there's technically like about 5-6 formats of Yu-Gi-Oh! They have the original TCG, the ones you see here, that'd be like a North American edition and South American, European edition, the ones you'd see there. And then there's Oceanic card game, which is all in Oceania, it'd be like China, South Korea, Indonesia, Japan. They actually have their own kind of format. And then there's the mobile games or the online services you can play on Switch or your phone, what have you, just to help spread the Yu-Gi-Oh! Name everywhere. Even there's even a new format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Called Rush Duel, where it's like a shortened version of the game itself, just to help make the game a bit faster. Yeah.
Did they have anything for like Did they ever have a Yu-Gi-Oh game for N64?
I don't think for N64, but they have had some for the Game Boy.
Oh, really? Oh man,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
should
yeah.
totally do a review of that sometime.
It's actually one of the hardest variations of the game to play
Damn.
because when that Game Boy one was coming out, it's mainly because in the early life of Yu-Gi-Oh, the Konami didn't know how the game was to really structure it, how to make it punctuate. And even with the card game on the Game Boy, it plays nothing like actually in the anime, and it plays nothing like how you would in the
Wow.
actual physical card game.
Damn.
So they had to make their own kind of format to play for the Game Boy. It was a really weird set. So it's kind of loosely the same, but once you're playing it, like wow, these are different mechanics and different things that are like there's never been realized in the card game or the anime.
Weird. There's a lot of ins and outs of this and the whole Yu-Gi-Oh thing that I did not realize. I was like, they made an anime and then they had a card game. But
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it than that, it's sounding like.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot of versatility, if you will, and kind of weird variations of how it popped up throughout the years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that Konami own it. I was just playing Contra and I beat it finally. But it's hilarious to know that, like, Contra and Yu-Gi-Oh! Or somebody there was like, yeah, let's get Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's get that one too, you know? It's funny.
Yeah.
Small
Yeah,
world.
Actually, funny enough, to celebrate the 25th anniversary, it's actually something that Konami partnered up with. Don't mind me, I'm just flashing these cards. They actually, to promote not only the 25th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh, they decided to branch out and make their own animation studio called Konami Animation. So they showed off, like what I said, with a bunch of archetypes that aren't told in the anime. They showed off a bunch of their, like a brief like look at what these stories could look like if it was an anime. So they did like Zerais, they did Sky Striker, and a bunch of other variations of series. And it looks really cool. It's like a small 6-minute animation, and it's also to promote their studio to showcase what is in store for what Konami's new anime studio can do.
Man, that's
So-
cool.
So it isn't just like a Yu-Gi-Oh kind of series that they can go off. It's like any Konami IP that can maybe make a new anime out of.
Konami, I feel like they have so much stuff they could do.
Oh yeah, 100%. Even like I've always been a high standard, like a high asking for a Yu-Gi-Oh anthology series where like every episode will be a different series about like the stories within the cards instead of just being in the anime. I always thought that'd be such a cool concept. Like,
Well, when you're in Japan, just are you gonna get out of the Konami office? Can you visit the building or something?
yeah, probably. Yep.
Yes, put that on the map. Talk to them about this Yu-Gi-Oh idea. Could you imagine if you could go there and get an interview with somebody for like, be like, hey, I'm at a podcast from Nova Scotia. They'll be like, Russia? What?
Yeah, I know, right?
Where is Nova Scotia?
Actually, funny enough, unrelated to Konami, I know, just going away from Yu-Gi-Oh. There was this old Resident Evil game called Resident Evil Outbreak. It was like one of the first like online service Resident Evil games way back in like 2003, 2004. It was only ever for PC and only ever in Japan, even in arcade systems and stuff like that. So eventually the series didn't really take off and they didn't really feel the need to release it globally. And the game just kind of slowly died off and well, Capcom shelved it. But then there's a lot of like diehard fans that still wanted to play the game. So one guy had the crazy idea. It's like, what if I just go to Capcom and see if they still have the servers for this game? So he goes up to the office like, hey, do you have the servers for Resident Evil Outbreak? And they're like, yeah, sure. Why? He's like, oh, I'm trying to see if I can boot up the servers again and get people playing. He's like, yeah, sure. We have it right here. Go for it. And then they just gave him the servers, and then he hooked everything up to one of his PCs, and now you can just play Resident Evil Outbreak
Because of
online
one
now.
guy.
Because of one guy, he just asked nicely.
See, that's awesome. It's funny how like things that are so massive and important to fans can get discarded by the companies, and they mean so much to so many more people. Like, I always wonder where the disconnect is there, that they don't have that realization themselves, you know, that there is an audience still for something like that.
Yeah, I know, right? It's kind of weird. Like that's how like a lot of old series, especially with like retro games, a lot of IPs kind of died out because nobody, well, they felt that nobody really asking for a lot of these series to come back for. So they kind of just live and die on those series, unfortunately, which is really cool. And some people really bring them up back to be played on newer services.
I know. It is cool when it happens. Your camera is frozen.
Ah. Anyways, I've shied away from it a bit too often. So how did you play this game? Thankfully, Yu-Gi-Oh! Every time you like, if you're buying an actual physical card set, they actually present you like an actual rulebook and how to kind of play the game.
Huh.
And actually, very recently, Yu-Gi-Oh! Released kind of a comic book series to go with a new two-player set, where it kind of tells you how to place the cards because it's all in like a formatted deck where they'll show you like, all right, with this deck, here's how you're gonna do it, and here's how you're gonna play it like in the show. Follow exactly what you do in the comic book, and that's how you're gonna loosely play the game, and then you're now free to play the game however you wish.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a cool little thing. It comes with 2 decks, which is unheard of. Most of the time, it comes with 1 deck for anything like that.
Huh, that's cool.
But yeah, so a lot of times they come with. This is a really old one. They'll come with a little. Oh my god, a little plastic thing that looks like this, showing you all the zones. So, I'll try to describe this for audio listeners here. So, there's approximately 7 zones. Between 7 zones, like 14 zones, and then 1 spot for your deck to go in, and then 1 spot for an extra deck to go in, which I'll explain a bit. So, for the biggest thing that Yu-Gi-Oh has is the monsters and the spells and traps. Now, spells and traps pretty much help you activate things that monsters can do. Monsters are pretty much as what you use to as a frontline assault defense, because both players start off with 8,000 life points, and the goal of the game is to reduce your opponent's life points to 0. So if I have Dark Magician on the field, he has 2,500. I attack my opponent directly. He loses 2,500 life points. He's now at 5,500 life points. I'm now closer to winning than my opponent is because of that aspect. And the spells and traps would simply just help out in other features. And like this, for example, with this card example, I play it spell card. I can only activate during my turn. I can look at the top 3 cards, and if it's a Dark Magician card that has like anything referencing this guy, I can add it to my hand. And then there's trap cards where you probably heard the infamous saying from like this from Yu-Gi-Oh in particular, where hey, you've activated my trap card, and it has a card face down here, and then you're like, oh, I have an actual trap card somewhere. Yeah, it's like, oh no, it's like you caught in my trap. Oh, I had this all planned out. Ha 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 ha. And then if it fades away to the graveyard or sorts.
So the graveyard can only be temporary, right? Like you can resurrect stuff out of the graveyard you mentioned a long time ago?
Yeah, so say if on my zones here, sorry audio listeners, if if you destroy my Dark Magician, right? He doesn't stay on the field, he goes to the graveyard. So he's not on the field, no board presence. I'm now wide open instead of just having a dash pile of 4 cards to go into. And then there's cards like Monster Reborn, a spell card. This lets me special summon a monster from either player's graveyard. So I can special summon Dark Magician from my graveyard, or one of my opponent's monsters from their graveyard I can use to counteract and fight, yada yada yada.
So is there a limit to how much stuff can be held in the graveyard? Like, is the graveyard, because of the Egyptian kind of paranormal stuff in the game, is basically like a world between worlds, isn't it? Before you're actually finally gonzo dead?
Yeah, because it takes a lot of aspects from the original series of Yu-Gi-Oh. The Egyptian gods, the main things in here, it really takes a lot of hemorrhage from them with monsters, graveyards, and field presence and all that stuff. Even tributing counts as sacrificing. Like this monster here, it's 7 stars. I would need 2 monsters on the field themselves, like these guys, tribute 1, tribute 2, as sacrifice to summon a stronger monster on my field. and it takes a lot of aspects to that, and obviously with the graveyard, even reference of that to make sure like things stay in the dead or reference in the dead of sorts. Yeah. Oh, and then there is ways to get monsters out of the graveyard, like I showed you with Monster Reborn. But that's just one way, and that's also just like there's a whole other zone of banishment, but it's a whole other kind of can of worms. And then there's another aspect. Say I have a token on the field, and then I have an extra deck I can use. This deck is used outside of your regular deck. You don't mix them. You don't mix the two because these are monsters you can use that are available to you at any time that you can summon outside of just your hand. Because you have a hand that consists of 5 cards usually. Well, it's not even 5 cards. There you go. You draw 5 cards on your opening turn, and then that's what you have to use to play the game. I see I have a trap, I have 3 spells, and a monster, so I should be good to start a play. With summon a monster in main monster zone. Level 4 or lowers are the only ones that can be summoned once without a sacrifice or anything like that, and then I can play my spells however I want. And then, since I know I'm going first, I can now set a trap card to scare my opponent or whatever. Like, oh, now I have a face down. To make sure I'm ready for whatever my opponent's next move is.
So when you put a trap card down face down, that's the only card that you're putting down face down in the game, right? So they know that it's a trap card that you've got.
Actually, there's a different aspect to Yu-Gi-Oh as well. So say my spells here in my hand. These are the kind of greenish teal cards, and then trap cards are kind of like the more pinkish dark violet, bright violet cards. So say if I don't want my opponent to really hit my my trap card, right? Like, oh, okay, I can actually place these face down without activating these cards as face down cards as bait. And so it's like, oh, he has a trap card set down. Oh, one of these is going to interact with me. I'm going to destroy this card. Boom, it's a spell. I dodged a bullet. Now he can't target my trap that I can use on him at some point. Even like with monsters, say if I have my monsters set up here with 1500 attack, this is where I learned a lot of math. Funny enough, I really learned a lot of my reading and math from Yu-Gi-Oh. Thankfully,
You should tell them that when you go to the office in Japan. Be like, I owe my academic skills to this card game.
Yeah, honestly, because a lot of the cards they throw out here are insane. Because like, link monsters throw a battle and you release a field because of opponent's card effect. You can special summon this. You can only use it once per turn. Like, what the hell does that mean?
And you said these. What was the time limit again for like a match?
So yes, in official matches, so say if I'm dueling in a tournament, each duel is approximately about 40 to an hour between both opponents. Because a lot of times a duel can last between 15 minutes to like 40 minutes, givingly. Because of how back and forth the duels can be, about how I'm doing to my opponent, I'm doing to this opponent, and your goal is to get the best of 2. So if I beat my opponent once and then I beat my opponent second time, that automatically ends the set. Say that's only like a half hour. The set is over. I go on to the next duel. Slide into it. But say if I win, then my opponent beats me. Then it's a best of 3rd duel, and then the duel, whoever wins that between that one, obviously goes on to the next. And that's why it has a little hour to really like let players play, just so they don't feel too rushed. But it's enough time to let at least 3 sets of games to go past. One, 2, or 3 games of each, pretty much.
So how much, like, if there were 2 expert players, would they just like whip through a game really quickly, you think?
Yeah, I would probably say. I would say like experts that you would see playing YCS, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championships. You'd probably see them get through games at least like before the 20-minute mark, maybe the half-hour mark at most. Even if it's like all 3 games at once.
God damn.
And even if like say you're going into you're about to go into overtime, right? And it's a 3rd duel. You have 1 win. Your opponent has 1 win. but let's say the difference in attack, like I attacked my Dark Magician over my Sky Striker Ray. My Sky Striker Ray only has 1500 attack, but my Dark Magician is 2500 attack. So since Dark Magician is a higher attack, I destroy Ray. That's 1,000 difference. So now I lose 1,000 life points. I'm now at 7,000 life points. That puts my opponent ahead of me in the game. And if if the timer ends and it's still at that state where my opponent has more life points than I am, my opponent automatically wins the duel. Even if this is the only Dark Magician in the field and I have more cards in the field, if my whoever has more life points at the end of that set is the automatic winner.
Damn. Okay.
It's just to help balance out instead of people just stalling and fluctuating the decks or duels of sorts.
Is there ever like a gridlock situation where like nobody can go?
There was some instances like that. That's why Yu-Gi-Oh has a ban list to make sure some certain cards aren't played. Because they recently broke a lot of their own rules with this aspect. There's even some cards consistently called like infinite loops, where it's there's a few phases in the Yu-Gi-Oh, right? There's the draw phase where I would draw one card. Then there's standby phase where it's kind of a brief moment. Cards can be activated, either trap cards or anything like that. And then it goes into main phase 1. And that's when you can activate any of your spells, traps, even so it already said, and summon your monsters. Then there's a battle phase where you would actually attack with your monsters. And then there's main phase 2 where you can stop attacking and plan, make an aftermath of battle plan. Like, oh crap, I lost 2 of my monsters. I can now plan afterwards and end my turn, which would be the end phase. But there's some cards that in specifically in the standby phase where they cause like an infinite loop where it just made if that standby phase never end. So both players are just watching this endless destruction effect. That's some aspects of how some mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh got. It just caused an infinite loop. And it caused like a DNF. The duel pretty much has to go into the next round because there's no plays that can be made to stop this or whatever.
So there's got to be somebody out there who's making a career and getting paid at being a Yu-Gi-Oh ref at some big games. I feel like somewhere.
Yeah, they're actually. I don't know if it's like an actual like stable career. You could probably volunteer and be like an actual. Like even if I wanted to, like I can actually like say if I participate in enough tournament duels, I can actually apply to be a judge.
Whoa!
So
you should do it.
Yeah, I know, right?
It would be so awesome.
They would be the ones that make the final call. So say if like both opponents are having a dispute, like my Egyptian god my card says I can just if I play 1,000 light points, I can destroy any card I want, and then his opponent saying like you're lying. Bullshit. I don't believe you at all. That's not what that card text says. And then they're arguing the schematics of how this card works. They'll call a judge over and be like, hey, so here's our dispute. Is this how this card works? Is he using this correctly? Or is he wrong and he's using it incorrectly? And then the judge would pick a side like, all right, this guy is using this card correctly. That's what the card text says what this card does. So he's in the right. Move on with the duel. So he would play his whatever destroy card, and guys like, and then lets the duels continue.
I wonder if the judge or the referee ever has to like call a certain person who like designed a card, and they're like, "What did you mean by this exactly?" You know.
There's some cards, especially really older cards, where it's really confusing writing, and I think it's just sometimes they just didn't know how the game was going to work, and it's just really confusing sentences. Like if this card sent to the graveyard, you shuffle both players' decks in the graveyards back together, and then draw a set amount of cards equal to what they did. Then it's like, what is that? Like, do you merge each other's decks like that? You and your opponents? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Huh. Like you shuffle each other's decks as one in graveyards, and then obviously that just doesn't make any sense. Like, why would I be using my opponent's great cards? But anyways.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like everybody needs to be agreed that like we're not gonna listen to some of the rules on other cards. Maybe vintage cards, because I'm sure all the new ones coming out wouldn't be that confusing, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Heck, even in my monster I showed you before, the Sky Striker Ray, this monster is a much more newer one, and there's some acronyms where they just reduce the amount of text on a card. So say like if this card's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it from the graveyard. It says graveyard quite a lot in this text because of that. So instead of saying graveyard, they say GY, which just means it's
Oh,
graveyard
I
for
see.
short.
The lingo.
Yeah.
Can you hold that one up close to the camera?
Yeah. This is a really shiny card. Hopefully the light isn't too bad on it.
It won't focus on it for some reason this time around.
Gosh darn it!
Can you
Sorry,
go any
Arnie,
closer?
listen. I can.
Maybe we can force the camera. It won't do. There we go. It did it. Okay, sweet.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, she's a pretty one. It was very shiny.
Yeah, I feel like so are the holographic ones. Are they all kind of... Do the majority of the cards get built with that stuff, or is that a special thing?
This is a special thing. This one actually, if you look at the two differences here, sorry, audio listeners who just, so these two cards, you can see that this one's kind of shiny and this one's super shiny. Even the rims out here, you can see like a golden thin border on it, and this one does not.
Oh yeah.
So this one came out of an actual, it's called the El Dorado pack, where it was supposed to be everything gold themed in this deck. So every card that was released in that set had this gold border. And this is how the regular card borders look like without any of the gold stuff, even still being all shiny and whatnot.
God damn. People must have wrote Yu-Gi-Oh books about all these things to look for, right? On these cards. Like, there's got to be a lot of text about all the variations.
Yeah, this is a Gen 1 card, and this is a Gen 8. You can see the difference how many card letters are in their box set. Like, Ray has a whole paragraph, and Dark Magician Girl only has a sentence.
Damn. What are your... Do you have any cards where you, like, really wanted to show anybody who's watching? Like, were there any top cards that you had aside that you wanted to show? Or you were just going to play through it?
I can do a bit of both, but did I put this card away? Yeah. So I've been, obviously I have like a huge collection of sorts since I've been collecting since 2005.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. And I've I've been collecting cards since obviously I was young, and so I've had to keep track of a lot of them. Like, oh my god, like how do I keep track of all these cards, or even just at least take care of them? Unfortunately, because I've been collecting so long, and back even when I was a young idiot, I ruined a lot of my cards because we just heavily played them. But I have a binder of sorts of all a bunch of my Yu-Gi-Oh cards I've collected over the years.
That's crazy. And you don't actually have an inventory written down, do you?
Unfortunately, no, because I collected so much. It's like, do I really want to go? Because last time I counted all my cards was in 2018, and I roughly counted 3,300 cards.
Dear God, that's crazy.
It's so many cards, and I have them loosely organized. And then this folder was just to keep all my ones that are super shiny intact in their okay format, so like they're not like just everywhere of sorts.
So if you're gonna go play a game in real life, will you go through your book and you take out all the ones you want, and then you put those in individual sleeve protectors, and then get that deck ready?
Yeah, as you can see here, this is the Seal of Orichalcos card. This is in a card sleeve that I could put in a deck that I want. So I would put it in a deck that I'm planned to use instead of just holding them here. Because even this card here, which actually has a pretty cool design on it. Not particularly, but if you look at it really shiny up close. Maybe hopefully that camera's working right. So sorry, audio listeners. It's supposed to be like
it worked.
Stardust sprinkles all over the card.
Oh yeah, that's cool. You know, if there's people listening, you just gotta go to YouTube and watch the video. Sorry, because you're not gonna get the full. Because if we're explaining it, it's gonna be better to see it, I think. God damn it.
I think you can, if you're like just listening to it, I recommend just even if just going to YouTube and seeing this.
Yeah.
I like if you obviously have no time, but
no, I mean this could be an ASMR Yu-Gi-Oh with Sully.
Yeah.
You just start like flipping through your book really slowly and like taking cards in and out really gently.
All right, this is page 182 just for you.
We should totally do one just for fun. That would be hilarious.
It's not even me describing cards. Like, I'm now on page 138.
Oh
I'm now
my
on
fuck.
page 139.
Somebody out there would type in Yu-Gi-Oh ASMR and they would love that, I bet. There's got to be an audience for that.
Oh, we will get a really weird audience from that one.
That's okay. I'm willing to do that. We'll do it. So how many cards can you take out of there? Like if you were going to go play a game, how many different decks would you make? Or would you know that you could mix them up once you end one match and go to the next one with another person? Like, could you take your decks and mix them all up again and make a couple of new ones out of what you brought with you?
So, yeah, so I can still bring this binder with me. There's a whole with the TCG called trading card game. Since cards are sold and traded quite a lot, so I would bring this binder. Say if it was like, oh, I'm actually going to sell these cards or trade these cards for someone else's cards. So like, hey, I have 3 Egyptian God Sliffers here. I would trade you some of these for some of your rare cards. So people would just have binders like this that go on for a while, as well. Like me, I'm not the only one who does it. And, so since I would have like, say I'll have 2 binders here. Here's one binder I'm willing to sell, and these 1 binders I'm willing to just like keep to myself and just hold for me to look at, essentially.
Man, they should have a Yu-Gi-Oh booth at HalCon. Do they ever do Yu-Gi-Oh stuff? You mentioned that they don't really, right?
No, unfortunately, Yu-Gi-Oh is still okay. Going on to Magic the Gathering, the other very popular card games created by Wizards of the Coast to make D&D of sorts. This is the most dominating card game like Yu-Gi-Oh in the Maritimes. There's very little spaces that do offer like just tournaments and areas for Yu-Gi-Oh. A lot of times you're gonna see nothing but Magic the Gathering. Heck, even at HalCon, to get people into the game, they have a whole booth set up where they'll give you a free Magic deck to let players get into Yu-Gi-Oh and not Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering.
I didn't even know Magic was still happening. I remember when I was a kid, Magic the Gathering was really popular, but she's still going strong, eh?
Yeah, and keeps going stronger. It's because Magic the Gathering, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh tries to create its own IPs and archetypes within itself. Magic the Gathering kind of still does that, but they started recently to branch out from themselves. But they also been going a lot longer than Yu-Gi-Oh. I think Magic the Gathering's been going on either since like the late 80s or like the early 90s. If I remember right.
I definitely remember it popular when I was in elementary school, and that would have been in like 89 and 90 and 91.
Yeah, they've been going strong for quite a while.
Back in the day.
Because they were making cards based on their D&D characters that you can play as, and that's how that got really popular, especially as D&D.
That's
back
cool.
then was super popular. So every main character you can see in here is loosely based off of D&D cards.
What the hell? I did not know that. That's really strange.
Yeah, because Wizards of the Coast makes both of these.
So you play Magic as well?
I adapted to Magic because everyone wanted to play Magic, and it was
Peer
like
pressure.
I don't want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And, there's like so many things going on. There's like 5 phases, and then there's like waifus and shit. What's with the teenage girl? Why am I summoning her? I want to summon an orc and attack you with an axe. I don't need to watch it. I don't want to watch an anime to know what I'm doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
God damn. Well,
Yeah.
I guess, it's they're missing out, They can stick to their orcs. At least there's more. I guess it sounds like there's more variety in Yu-Gi-Oh! For different stuff. Oh.
Yeah, because obviously I just poke fun at my own series. There's obviously like even dragons and like orcs and stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. Heck, there's a whole archetype based on goblins. You can just summon different goblins, activate different kind of goblin card effects and such like that.
And why wouldn't you,
Right? And Magic, what they did to really branch variety in themselves in their own card game is they started doing crossovers with different series. So they crossed over with like Transformers.
What?
They implemented Transformers into their card game to have a whole transforming aspect in the cards. And like
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a whole rabbit hole. They even released card sleeves, essentially like a just Decepticon.
That
card
looks
sleeve.
cool though. Like I feel like
Yeah.
you should have any customizable sleeve for a card.
Actually, that's what this is. This is not an official card sleeve. This is just a customizable card sleeve for Skycheck Array.
Because you could technically print your own ones, right?
You can, yeah.
You just put your face on all of them so people will know they're yours.
There's also some where you have to have like a PG rating for your even just a card mat, because you can make your own custom mat that isn't just with my my noble knights here. You can have like I don't have any of my mats here with me. Anyways, I have one of them that's like all based on like like old Japanese samurai that are all zombies, which and then I have one that's a bunch of fiends type monsters with kind of menacing, look like demented from hell.
Jeez.
And then I have one where it has like the Dark Magician girls and Dark Magician up against a Blue Eyes White Dragon. So they kind of it's advertised in every tournament, since there's obviously there's going to be kids there also trying to learn how to play the game, participating in these tournaments to keep it PG, because there's some unfortunately degenerate players who would have like, oh my god, I want Dark Magician girl as a mat, but I want her titties out. So
Oh yeah, there's always that crowd.
there's always that crowd no matter where you go.
Yeah,
They're not just in Yu-Gi-Oh, but obviously any series in general.
the Magic the Gathering series.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how Magic the Gathering kept afloat, because they did one with Transformers, then they crossed over with Street Fighter. They crossed over with Street Fighter as well. You can play as Guile and Chun-Li. And
Magic?
Ryu.
Wait, who owns Magic? Is it Konami?
Magic the Gathering is owned by Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
They also own D&D.
And
Which is
Street Fighter's
like-
Capcom, right?
Yeah, Street Fighter is Capcom. Yep.
It's so weird. We'll have to play it. That's all there is to it.
Funny enough, it's actually like, okay, so what I love about Yu-Gi-Oh is that it's actually easier to play online than Magic the Gathering. There isn't really many actual like many apps to play Magic the Gathering like everywhere fluently. So Yu-Gi-Oh has two mobile apps. One's called Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel and Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Links. Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel takes a heavy inspiration from how playing the actual card game is like, and then Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Links is like how about you want to play like the anime, right? You can play as your favorite character and get different abilities, help you power through the game of sorts, instead of just being locked to just how the regular format is. Because in the anime, funny enough, you only have 4,000 life points, and where in the actual card game you have 8,000 life points, which is really weird.
That is
for each
weird.
button.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a really big difference, because they're trying to make the games last longer originally, just so if 4,000 life points, like there's some cards that are like, oh, inflict like 2,000 damage to your opponent, and then you have two of those, two 4,000 damage, your opponent's dead, and then end the game. Like,
Damn.
so there's a lot of cards in the anime that are like that, and to shoo away from that, they just doubled the life cap of 8,000 to make games more interactive and long.
So has anybody died playing one of these games, Sully? Has there ever been a scandal? Has anything crazy happened that you know of?
Actually, there's actually a pretty wholesome story. Let's just show me some of the cards that I bring out.
Oh yeah, yeah. If there's anything
so-
really cool, point it right up to the camera so it'll go into focus.
I'm just gonna showcase cards as I talk about this story. I think this was in late '90s or in early 2000s. There was a Make-A-Wish foundation. There's a kid I think he was in high school named Tyler. He actually developed brain cancer, unfortunately, and so on Make-A-Wish he was like, "Hey, can I have my own Yu-Gi-Oh card? Can I have my own Yu-Gi-Oh card made?" And then Make-A-Wish was like, "We will see what we can do." So they sent this Make-A-Wish over to Kazuki Takahashi with Konami and whatnot. It's like, hey, what's your interest in making like a Make-A-Wish card for this kid with brain cancer? It doesn't seem like he has much longer to live. What are your thoughts on it? So He said yes, funny enough. And this is actually the only time he's ever said yes to this. This is a one in a lifetime kind of chance for Tyler here, even with just Make a Wish in general. So they made a card exclusively just for Tyler, and then Kazuki Takahashi actually made a bunch of rough drafts and talking with Tyler and what card how he wants it to look, what's the card's name, what he wanted to do. Since it was a one-time card, they sent him a bunch of rough drafts to see if like Tyler even liked the cards. So you can see different variations of how this card came out.
That's
and then
crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? And the card came out to be called Tyler the Great Warrior, based after him. And then they actually, funny enough, they actually made the card in front of Tyler
Whoa.
after it was all said and done. And then he had it. Unfortunately, he wasn't allowed to like really like play with it. It got sealed in a card case where not card case, but like a card display. Like it got manufactured sealed where it'll forever be in like mint condition.
Damn.
For yeah, so it had like instrumental value.
And you were saying that he sold it eventually, didn't he? Or is it up for sale?
Spoilers. Tyler the Great Warrior, he actually did survive brain cancer, and then went to live on. And then, since he had this card in his back pocket for a while, he held on to it for obviously for about 20 so odd years, because of sentimental value. Because what the card meant to him, it meant to him like surviving brain cancer and like how it helped him and his family at the time to really power through it. So, by the time he in the 20s now, I think he was like in his like late 30s. He wanted to see more for his life, and since he has a lady and he has a family he's starting up, he really wanted to really make a living for himself. So he decided, like, what if instead of just keeping the card on me, what if I sell it to a collector to have it like in a museum of sorts, because of the story and value this card has, instead of just picking up dust in his closet. So then he worked with like the various card collectors and PSA graders to look at it, grade it, and get it on the market to sell. And this card eventually put on bid on eBay. It's sold for about $311,000.
Jeez.
And funny enough, people are really heavy debated on this because they really think it should have sold for more. Because there was one card, I think it was like the Blackluster Ultra card. I'm pretty sure it sold. It was a tournament only card that you can only collect during the very first tournament of Yu-Gi-Oh! That got out to Winter Championships. I think this card eventually sold down the line. I think about 17 years later to about almost $1 million or about $1 million.
That is weird.
But there's reprints of that card, right? You can still use variations of that card. Tyler the Great Warrior is a one of a kind. You can't. He was the only one even allowed to even use this card technically.
So
So
it is in a museum now, or somebody bought it to use in a game?
nobody plays with this card. The collector who bought it, he keeps it in a display case. Just a memoir, keep a memorabilia, the history of this card. But yeah.
And they've never done a reprint of it as a special edition thing ever.
They never done a reprint because they thought it was going to be the one and only. And well, actually, it is the one and only variation of this card.
Crazy.
And people are upset that it's undersold for so well because people thought like they should have sold for more, which I actually kind of agree. I kind of think it should have sold for more. But I guess Tyler wasn't really too set on making like. I think he was already well off himself from his work and what he was doing, and he didn't even really play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. So he just like opted off into like a healthy amount that he thought was nice for himself. So he ended up just selling it off for $811,000.
Damn.
This isn't the highest kind of card selling in even just card games in general. I believe Pokemon it has their trading card games in their system, since Pokemon tried to capitalize on the same idea that Yu-Gi-Oh was doing, since they were like, oh my god, people collect cards, people love this, we gotta do that with Pokemon, and then make their own card game based off of Pokemon. Doesn't play like the video game, unfortunately.
So I wonder what the most expensive card ever is.
I believe it's a Pokemon card, or no, actually, that's wrong, because I that was old information, because recently I believe there was a Lord of the Rings set that that did a collab with Magic the Gathering.
Goddamn Magic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Magic, Wizards of the Coast decided to release a one-of-a-kind card of the One Ring based on Lord of the Rings. Since they wanted this one card to be the only card ever printed for this series. And with that, I think it was Post Malone who found the guy who pulled the card because they were doing card revealings like I'm doing it right now. It's showcasing like, here's what I'm pulling, and it's showing their hands, showing all their stuff. He bought the card off him for $1 million.
Post Malone.
Post Malone, he's a rapper.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So he's a big fan.
He's a big Magic the Gathering fan, and then he's like, I really want this card, and then so he bought it off of him, and I'm pretty sure he just collects it instead of actually playing with it.
That's hilarious. There's so many sweet things in people's collections. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's funny too because what they did for that card, instead of printing it in English, they actually decided to print it in Elven, like in the series.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. It'll get you.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the most expensive cards ever sold.
Damn. And how much was that again?
I think it was about either a million or $1.5 million.
Dear God. I guess it'll go up in price though, no matter what.
Yeah, it definitely would.
So what are you building
What?
here on the camera?
So right now I'm just showcasing some of my decks because they're varieties. This is my zombie deck that I have in general. This is my favorite deck to use because even this has a bunch of variety of zombie cards. You can see here where it's just two zombies singing karaoke together.
Those zombies are definitely drunk.
Yeah, I just love the variation of like Yu-Gi-Oh has. Like obviously there's goofiness like that, and then there's and here's a really detailed card of a guy sitting in like the mallish city. Hopefully that focuses well.
If you go bring it up a little bit closer, it might do it. Come on, there we go.
If you listen a little bit closer, audio listeners, you can see it too.
Just go to the YouTube channel and click the damn button. Yeah, because it looks like the artwork is vastly different on all those. Like, there's no consistent vibe through any of those that I've seen when you showed them to me in person. Which is good. Like, I think that's awesome.
Like, I also think it's pretty dope. Having variety in cards, I think, is much more better instead of just having, like, one set. Like, this is just, like, a skull dragon of sorts.
Yeah, bizarre.
And then you obviously have, like, the goofiness of these cards here. But yes, I wonder if I had the other card for this. I don't think I do. I'm just gonna bash these together. But yeah, any questions you got for me as I fix this up?
It's just funny because there's so much variety in all the different cards. It's like the opposite of Andor's art department.
You just had to bring up Andor, huh?
Had to say it. I just need everything to be rust orange and green. I don't care what planet it is. It's got to be green or orange, all right, Sully? Don't deviate.
Get this Lord of the Flies stuff out of here. I'm
so
sorry
good.
for people who like Andor.
Andor is great. We're having fun. We're here for fun.
I do love Andor. It's actually one of my favorite shows I've watched this year. Well,
See? There you go.
This year, yeah.
You should watch For All Mankind. That show is great. Dude, for the first time ever, Darwin has come on the podcast. I don't know if you can see him.
I can't see anything.
Oh, we've got a cat just hanging out next to me for the first time.
Hell
Just
yeah.
living it up.
I remember always seeing like Marty or something. Like, oh my god, it's a cameo!
Yeah.
Let's go!
We'll have a whole cat podcast eventually. It'll be like Run the Jewels. We'll just meow everything. Meow the jewels. So, with Yu-Gi-Oh!, do you think that there's got to be a big portion of the fans who just know the anime that don't play the card game, right? Like, they're just fans of the show?
Yeah, there is a big discrepancy between like people who just competitively play the game and people who just know it from the anime.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like Yu-Gi-Oh is still like, haha, you activated my trap card, right? It's like Yu-Gi-Oh has kind of grown past that kind of phase where it really like outgrew its source material, like I said before, and it's a lot faster pace, and there's a lot more stuff going on and how the game works and how metas shift into it. So a lot more to take in mind, and that creates a discrepancy between like, all right, so who is the actual audience for Yu-Gi-Oh 4? If people who are only watching the anime, if they buy and collect the cards and they play the TCG, it isn't like how they thought it was going to be, because they thought it was going to be somewhat like close to how the anime is. But sometimes like you play a game and you just get completely demolished. You have like almost no opportunity to play because of how a fast paced some decks can be, and that drives away a lot of old school players or even returning players to say, if like I played Yu-Gi-Oh back in 2005, I should be able to do this and do that, and but it doesn't really apply to like what modern day Yu-Gi-Oh is capable of anymore. Since Yu-Gi-Oh really tried to adapt and make things fresh many times over the course of its 25 years, for all of its audiences there, and even this year, Konami celebrating its 25th anniversary. I think they did the Hoisted tournament last week, showcasing Konami animation and all that. They did a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, but they decided to do a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament to appeal to anime watchers and people who grew up watching OG Duel Monsters. So with that series, with that Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, it was like, oh, I summon like a Man-Eater Bug and I destroy one monster in the field. Yeah. And a lot of the people who play Yu-Gi-Oh competitively, they weren't as intrigued in watching this. It's like, why am I watching this kind of play style from like 20 years ago?
Yeah,
This
well,
isn't
with
yeah, it's not
Pokemon, it's like almost like they reinvent themselves with a different thing, because remember when Pokemon, was it called Pokemon Go, the one where it had the augmented reality thing?
Yep,
Where you
the
find
Pokemon
them?
Go.
So it's like people were getting obsessed with that, but before that they were obsessed with the card game, or they were obsessed with the show, or they were obsessed with a Pokemon Stadium, or they were there's just so many different things that people were getting obsessed with about it. It's crazy. Maybe there'll be some crazy Yu-Gi-Oh Go thing with AR,
Yeah,
VR.
That's what I've been hoping for all my life, dude. If I can pull up with I haven't even touched on it. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Disc that goes on the protagonist's arms, and they just play Yu-Gi-Oh! Like that. Like, I have 5 cards, just straddle across my arm, and I can set all my spells and traps, instead of it being a tabletop game.
I told you,
And
I won't even play unless I have that.
Yeah, the only reason why people don't play that, because it's just too uncanny, unfeasible to do. You'd be holding your arm up for so long, so many periods of time, where it just becomes like weight on your arm, and then you're like, oh crap, I have to put my arm down. I don't want to spill my deck. Oh my god, my deck's spilling on the floor because there's only like a deck slot. You're like, my cards are spilling all over the floor.
Somebody needs to redesign it and make it better. For real life.
There's one thing actually. One YouTuber, he actually had a good theory on like, how do we actually make Yu-Gi-Oh like feasible on the arm, because everybody wants to play on the arm. You're no exception. Everyone's like, I want to play like in the anime. I'm not playing it unless I play like in the anime, because it's such a cool way to play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done that yet, to be honest. Like, I'm surprised they haven't done that.
I mean, they did, but obviously it was too unfeasible, and obviously people would rather play in the card game. Because say you're in a tournament and you're going to be playing for 6 hours, you're going to really want to have a dual disc on your arm, standing up, playing like all this.
You're talking to a person who wears a proton pack for a long period of time at 40 years of age. So maybe there's a way to 3D print it. I should look on Etsy, because I noticed that the toys, when we were looking them up, me and you and Henry, just getting it out of package, like a vintage one, is so expensive, and it doesn't make sense to use that one. Yeah,
the obviously even the dual discs themselves, especially from the original series where they have their dual disc, it costs so much. Obviously because they're now collector's items now more than anything.
Yeah.
But there was one YouTuber who had a good idea. So say if they make a new series of Yu-Gi-Oh where you collect cards like you do, except the cards are kind of like they kind of work like credit cards. They have a slash into it. So say if I have my physical deck in my hand, and instead of the dual disc that you put separate cards into it, it's like a tablet that goes in your arm. Then it's like, oh, I have in my hand my cards. I would like slash a credit card and it'll summon Dark Magician, like because I slashed them as a credit card.
That's interesting.
Then it'll loot up the tablet with me and my opponents, and I can look at what my opponent is doing in my tablet and see what cards he's doing. Because another aspect of the duel that had failed, me and my opponent would have to be really close to each other, and I was like, "Does that card say what it is?" And then, as you can see, there's really small text within Yu-Gi-Oh, because they're on such thin pieces of cardboard. So to save time on asking questions of your opponent, like I can just look on my tablet, see what his card does, etc. That's what one theory is out there to really like make actual do this feasible.
Oh, it's happening.
Not the way people would like, obviously, but it would be a reformation of the cards itself. But that's the most realistic way I can see of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Disc era.
I think they should do an Apple Vision Pro version where you tack it to your arm, so it's the digital version, so you don't have to hold anything in real life, and nobody could actually see your cards. You wouldn't drop any, but they would be the AR VR ones, and you could keep an infinite amount right there, you know?
Actually, with the 25th anniversary, Konami released an official Yu-Gi-Oh! VR game on Meta. So you can actually play like that in the Meta Quest.
Well, what are we doing right now? Why aren't we doing this?
Why are they teaching this all in the metaverse?
Meet me at the metaverse. That would be interesting. So you'd have to get one of those Quest VR things, right?
Yeah.
Well, those aren't that much. They're like $600 or $700, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good. Top of the line as of right now. Well, before Apple Vision right now.
Yeah. Fuck, that's expensive.
Yeah. Apple Vision, it's kind of a weird, even just talking about it, because it's hard to compare it to like other VR sets because it's not doing the same thing as the other VR sets are doing.
It's like its own thing.
Yeah, which is why it's really hard to say is Meta VR better or Vision Pro better? It's like, well, yeah. If they had some of the same things doing for themselves, I'd say yeah. But like you can actually walk around and use like the Vision Pro.
I know. It's so weird.
There's cameras on the Quest, but that's just to help you just see your surroundings right quick. It isn't like integral to the device, because with Apple Vision Pro, it's meant to put virtual reality into reality, and regular VR sets are supposed to take you out of reality into virtual reality.
Yeah,
VR.
I think the next Apple Vision and then the next Quest are gonna be really crazy. Probably it's gonna be really weird.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually so excited where like Vision Pro has just become like your glasses you just chuck on.
Yeah,
like
well, I like the Apple Vision Pro because I like the Ready Player One stuff where we're all like, it's to me it looks like such clunky 80s tech of like what we would have thought it would have been like back then, that I'm just so shocked that the Apple Vision Pro is so huge and apparently really heavy that it's just surprising to me because it's so not sleek looking or like do you know what I mean? It looks like 80s tech. It's crazy. I don't know, and that's probably why I like it. But no, you're right though. If you could just have little ones that you could stick on, I'm sure it'll get there.
That's what I find really looks like the future of this kind of tech. I mean, I'm not gonna rush out and buy like a VR. I don't think anybody is, to be quite honest.
Nope, I don't think they are either.
Yeah. So.
I would though if I had money. If I was the kind of person who made enough where, you know, $4,800, Jesus, before tax Canadian, wasn't that much for a gimmicky thing, I totally would do it, for sure. But that's a lot of money.
Spare case of like $4,800, you should be buying.
Yeah. I'd have to sell like a bunch of stuff out of this room, and then I probably wouldn't feel very good about buying it.
Oh right, this card. As I'm going about things, this is actually one of the rarest cards I pulled as of recently.
Oh.
This is a Dark Armed Dragon. This card originally came out, I think, in 2009, 2010. So this card, if you kind of shine it around, you can see all the speckles in it.
Yeah.
And I think in the card text bottom, it should show 25th century rare. If I move it a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that looks great. You listening harder, audio listeners? It's right there. Just focus your mind.
Oh shit.
Yeah. One of my favorite cards I pulled as of recently.
What is the most
last-
expensive card you have?
So this card I showed you here is about $90. And obviously you can see, well, if the light isn't blocking a lot of the things out of view. Last I checked, it was this card I owned from an old... I had an old pen pal from Japan where I used to buy card sleeves off of him, and he would give me Japanese cards. So I have a lot of Japanese cards.
That's cool.
As,
That'll help with the Japanese.
right? Actually, I'm willing to do that. I'm actually going to buy a Yu-Gi-Oh set of cards so I can actually like do what Yu-Gi-Oh did for me, learning English and teaching me Japanese.
Are you gonna buy some cards while you're in Japan?
Oh, 1,000%. There's actually some cards in Japan that haven't released yet in Americas. So I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to buy these cards and bring them back.
That's awesome. That's a good idea.
No way I'm going to miss out while being there.
Can you take any? I guess you can't take like ones from here and sell them there for more. That just makes sense.
I could probably, depending on the sets. But obviously, it's a different format of TCG, which is North America, South America, Europe, yada yada yada. Then Oceanic, which is Japan, South Korea, and whatnot. They're interchangeable to an extent. There has to be a quotations mark on it, unfortunately. But I probably could. But a lot of times, like, I don't think a lot of people are looking for like English kind of cards in those areas.
You never know. There's that one person. So
Yeah,
can
'cause-
you join any groups, like meet up and play? I mean, I guess you don't want to fly all the way to Japan and play Yu-Gi-Oh in like some comic book place, but it'd be kind of
Actually,
cool.
what they did for the online versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links on the mobile phone and PC, and Master Duel that you can play on PC, phone, Xbox, PlayStation, etc. Since it's a globally international system, a game where I can just play with someone from Japan or from South America, so it's all one format instead of just being two separate entities from each other. Also, before you buy any cards, I don't recommend buying like a structure deck like you'd see at Walmart right away. I highly recommend you play one of the mobile game versions first, specifically Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, since it plays most likely like the card game you see now. They'll at least let you know if you actually like playing the game. That's a big aspect of it, because yeah, like I was saying before, a lot of older players are shooing away from it. Even people who've only seen it from the anime, they're like, this plays nothing like I thought would be in the anime.
Damn.
Save your money, play the game for free, see if you like it, and then if you're like, wow, this is really cool, I want to collect the cards, like my collection here, like, wow, it seems like a cool collection and stuff like that. That's when I would really recommend you actually like buy a set. But then there's also an aspect in mind, make sure you get someone who's already into Yu-Gi-Oh with you, or find your locals wherever you are in the world to see like who's actually like playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Because in my area, unfortunately, there's only one area that does host Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments that like officially sponsored by Konami.
What?
It's a sports card center.
Where is that?
Mostly sports. It's in like upper. It's like in North End, Halifax.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. That's cool though.
It's run by a nice old man who he doesn't care how nerdy stuff is. He's just like, you guys can just rock it.
That's hilarious, dude. That could be your retirement job. You just run some Konami tournaments for Yu-Gi-Oh.
I always thought about that. Like, is this the end game? Is it the end goal?
I think it might be. I think you may have just described it.
I've become a hermit in my time of life. Just surrounded. Like, I have no friends or family. I just have nothing but Yu-Gi-Oh cards all over pressed on my
That's
wall.
okay, you know. It's the little things, Sully. The little things.
Yeah.
So we talked about this before. If you misplaced one of these books, it probably wouldn't be very fun.
Yeah. I like if my apartment is burning down, the first thing I'm grabbing is my cards. I have all my cards able to be put in one of my backpacks. That's one of the first things I'm grabbing. Like,
Gosh.
put it on my back. Maybe I'll save my PC.
Can you insure the Yu-Gi-Oh cards? I mean, I guess you could, right?
You can, yeah. It's expensive to do so. Also, like a fee of sorts to keep it going.
Okay, would you have to get them all graded professionally to insure them?
It depends on like how many. I would have to get them insured and make sure a lot of my cards are legitimate to get them insured.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So I can be like, I get insurance on like fraudulent cards, and that's not what people want to do. So.
Yeah, that's probably not a good way to do it.
No.
So is there any particular artist of the cards that you think, tickles your fancy the most?
Okay, so there's something I dislike about Yu-Gi-Oh! All right, with the artist. Obviously, you can see there's different kind of styles. And like I said before, with Kazuki Takahashi developing the cards, even new cards coming out today after he's passed, he's not the only artist making Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. But unfortunately, Konami doesn't really like share who does the Yu-Gi cards individually. Like if I bring out a Magic card here, just one card. This card here. They actually have the artist's name branched at the very bottom here somewhere. Yeah. They actually show you who illustrates the card at the very bottom of it. Like, oh, this card was illustrated by Greg Stewart. That's who commissioned the art for this individual card. Which Yu-Gi-Oh! Does, but they don't have that as public knowledge for some. Which
That's
I think
weird.
is such a shame. Because I would love to like be able to see like what artists I'd be excited to see his artwork for.
Is there a reason that they do it that way?
From the theory I have that I can just gather just from my knowledge now is that there's a lot of times where like a lot of artists get like attacked. It happens quite a lot in Japan. It's been
Like physically attacked?
sometimes worse. It can vary to an extent. Like there was one series, an anime series that came out in the 90s, where the studio that was making anime Neon Genesis, they actually ran out of money. They couldn't afford to keep hiring the animators to keep making the show, so they had to scrap together whatever they had and just make an ending for the anime. And then after that, the backlash from it was astronomical because people were sending death threats not only to like the producers, they're sending death threats to the animators and the artists, the mangaka. Like this isn't how it should be, and it got so overwhelmed with like death threats that they felt like people had to get a fundraiser to help pay these people to make the series continue on. And it's happened a few times with like different, not just that series in general, with like a bunch of artists. And so Japan doesn't have fair use in the country. That's why like there's a lot of companies like Nintendo and Sony who are very like hard on people who use their IPs. So unless it's like by official standards, like the people really try to like cut down on it because it's not controlled by the companies who are making it.
That's funny. All the stuff I've been reading about Atari lately, that was one of their biggest issues, is they wouldn't give credit to the artists or the engineers making the games. So they had to start hiding their names into the games as Easter eggs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like that's why Activision started, because these four dudes weren't getting the credit they wanted for their games, so they just made Activision, and even Pitfall in the corner of the game, the whole time it says who made it, the whole time you're playing it.
This is what the one card I was looking for quite a while. I think I showed you this card in person. It's one of my most prettiest cards I own, and probably one of my most rare. It's Secret Egyptian Rare from Japan.
Secret Egyptian. Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, because if I shake it around a bit, you can see kind of the hieroglyphs.
Yeah, that's a cool way to make a card.
Yeah, they have different kind of cool ways of making cards like that, which I don't see Magic doing very often. One up you there.
Take that, Magic.
Yeah.
Like Gathering.
But
I know
yeah,
nothing of Magic, so.
I know the very surface level to get me into it.
As you hide
yeah,
your other Magic deck.
Yeah, I push it to the side. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine that's the kind of the reason why they don't put the artist's name in Yu-Gi-Oh. Which is, like I said, it's a shame. I don't think it should be like that. Even if like they have like disputes like that. I don't think that should be a principle behind a lot of it.
Yeah, that's
There's-
bizarre.
Because there's even some like IPs that they do this. Like there's one in Dragon Ball. There's one artist named Fenyo, and he's a Japanese based artist, and he actually commissions a lot of artwork for Dragon Ball for official reasons, either promotional artwork or like new covers and shit like that. And since he's such a good at mimicking like Toriyama's style, they just they use him as a poster boy for a lot of things. But it's so weird seeing that because obviously he's like the only one I really know of that really does like his names on the promotional artwork, other than like official animators that we've learned from after, or like decades after, right?
Yeah. Wow, that is strange. Although, you know, that's one of the reasons I don't do like freelance illustration and stuff anymore like that. Like that just it's weird, man. People will take a talent that you have and just farm it out of you and take it for granted. And it's really too bad because it should be the opposite, but it's just not handled very well, like universally.
Yeah, because you were an animator for a while, right?
Yeah, back in the day. It's a cleanup artist, which was really annoying. It's like, give me all the rough animation. Oh, you want to pay me to put it all back on model? My God. Especially someone like me, when I'm like a little bit OCD about certain things, like it drives you crazy trying to get all of the, you know, proportions back.
I imagine it kind of forces you to like, people will like take the term perfectionist and kind of bastardly use it. I imagine that kind of aspect where like it actually is perfectionism.
Yeah, like
That's
you're
the
being
right
paid.
scaling.
Exactly, you're being paid to be a perfectionist because, like, I remember I had all the models of the characters in like turnaround and like 3/4, and no matter what I had, man, some of the animation I got was pretty rough, and you kind of are partially animating it, you know, like without any credit. You're just a cleanup artist, but you're also actually animating, but you don't get the credit. Anyways, that's way off topic. Well, we're at our like hour and a half mark here, Sully. Any closing thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh, even though you have no camera on your face?
Dark Magician Girl is best girl. Don't at me. If you're gonna play Yu-Gi-Oh, play Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel. Specifically, you could play it on PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, your mobile phone, Xbox, PC. To see if you even like the game. And before you buy any cards, Yu-Gi-Oh! Matt is based off of freaking like. What's his face? King Arthur. Oh my God! It's episode 17, the showcase special, episode 1.
18.
18. I'm sorry.
We're on 18.
Oh, calm down. 18. I got my number wrongs again. It's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Showcase special. It's part 1 of hopefully many series of different kind of styles. This is the first of many to come. Remember to like, subscribe, and we're on Apple, Spotify, and that's about it. Link in the comments your thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! Or if you're ever interested in seeing other things like that kind of aspect like this. So, that's it. Bye!